Have you ever wondered why two people born in the same street, breathing the same air, facing the same struggles, end up living completely different lives? One stuck in poverty forever, the other rising to unimaginable success. The rain was falling heavily that night. A dim streetlight flickered above a broken shopboard as young Daniel sat with his head in his hands, counting the last few coins he had. His stomach ached with hunger, but more than that, his heart ached with shame. He had promised his younger sister that tomorrow would be better, but deep down, he didn't believe it himself. What if the real difference between rich and poor was never money, but mindset? Daniel's father had always told him, "Money doesn't grow on trees. We're not like them. People like us just survive." Those words echoed in his ears like a curse. He carried them everywhere, to school, to work, even into his dreams. He didn't see opportunities, only walls. He didn't see abundance, only scarcity. The night grew colder. He pulled his torn jacket tighter and remembered the afternoons when kids from wealthier families would laugh at him for wearing the same shoes every year. That laughter carved scars in his memory. His mother, working day and night, used to whisper, "We just need to get through one more month." But 1 month turned into years, and nothing changed. What if his entire life was shaped by beliefs he never chose, but simply inherited? There was a moment, years later, that Daniel would never forget. He was walking home past the city center, carrying a bag of bread. Across the glass walls of a tall building, he saw people in suits laughing, holding coffee cups, and discussing projects that could move millions of dollars with just a signature. For a second, he froze. His reflection on that glass didn't look like a man. It looked like a shadow. That's when a thought pierced him. Why not me? But guilt followed immediately. How dare he even think like that? He was just a boy from nowhere. His father's voice returned, telling him to stay in his place. His heart raced, torn between two worlds, one that chained him and one that called him. Do you realize how many dreams die because guilt convinces people they don't deserve more? That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. His small room was silent, except for the dripping of rain through the cracked ceiling. He lay awake staring at the dark, thinking about the difference between those men in the glass tower and him. Was it really money? Or was it something else? Something invisible? He remembered how his teacher said he was smart, but his father always silenced him. Dreams don't feed the stomach. Maybe that was the lie. Maybe the stomach would never be full until the mind was free. He sat up, heart pounding, and whispered to himself, "I will not inherit their fear. I will create my own belief." It was the first time he allowed himself to imagine abundance. But what if abundance is not something you find? It's something you build inside first, the I. Following weeks were brutal. Every time Daniel tried to think positively, old voices returned. His friends mocked him, saying he was wasting time. His father grew angry, telling him he was becoming arrogant. Yet there was a fire inside him now, one he could not extinguish. He began writing daily, not what he lacked, but what he had. Every night, in a torn notebook, he wrote 3 things he was grateful for. At first, it felt foolish, but slowly, he noticed something change. His heart grew lighter. His fear started losing its grip. One evening, walking back from work, he looked at the same tall glass building again. This time, he didn't see himself as a shadow. He imagined himself inside, shaking hands, leading meetings, making decisions. The reflection wasn't just of who he was, it was of who he could become. What if the greatest wealth begins the very day you stop seeing yourself as a victim? Years later, Daniel did enter that building. Not as a passerby, but as a man who owned part of it. He had shifted his entire destiny by changing one thing: his mindset. Scarcity had told him to survive. Abundance taught him to create, to risk, to grow. That shift did not come overnight, but it began with a single decision: refusing to let Inherited fear decide his future, and here lies the secret no one tells you. Billion-dollar journeys are not built on money alone. They are built on vision, courage, and the belief that life is not happening to you. It's happening for you. So, ask yourself, are you counting coins in the dark, or are you ready to rewrite the story you inherited? Have you ever stood at the edge of a decision, heart pounding, knowing that one step could change your entire life, but also destroy everything you had left? The evening was heavy with silence. A small rented office smelled of old paper and coffee stains. Daniel, now 22, sat in front of a dusty desk, staring at a letter of rejection from yet another investor. His startup idea had failed 3 times already. Bills piled up like mountains on the corner of the table, and every time he looked at them, guilt pressed into his chest like a stone. He was tired, broke, and nearly defeated. What if the real risk was not in failing, but in never daring to try at all? He remembered his childhood vividly. His father's words still echoed. Don't take chances, they'll ruin you. Those warnings felt safer back then, but now Daniel realized they had chained him. Each time he lost money, he heard his father's voice laughing inside his head. Every time someone mocked his failures, his old scars burned again. The air in that tiny office was thick with regret, but also with an invisible fire he could not kill. The clock ticked past midnight. Outside, rain tapped on the window as if the world itself was testing his patience. Daniel leaned back in his chair and whispered to himself, "If I quit now, I'll prove them right." The thought cut deeper than failure itself. Do you know how many dreams die because people fear the shame of failing more than failure itself? The next morning, Daniel walked to a bank, his hands trembling. He had only a few assets left, an old motorcycle and a small savings account. He signed papers to take a loan he wasn't sure he could repay. His friends thought he was insane, his family furious. But when he walked out of the bank holding those papers, the world looked different. The sky seemed brighter, the air sharper. For the first time, he felt alive. Flashback pulled him into his younger days, when as a boy he stood on the sidelines of a cricket field, too afraid to play because he feared missing the ball. He remembered how others mocked him, shouting he wasn't good enough. That fear had chased him into adulthood. Now, with the loan papers in his pocket, he swore he would never let fear bench him again. What if resilience is not about being fearless, but about refusing to stay down after the fall? The first few months were brutal. His small team worked in a garage, surrounded by wires, broken chairs, and piles of failed prototypes. They slept on the floor, shared instant noodles, and fought over tiny mistakes. Sometimes Daniel caught his reflection in the dirty window and asked himself if he was insane. But every time doubt grew louder, he forced himself to act faster, to move forward without hesitation. One night, when their product failed for the 4th time, his team was ready to give up. The garage smelled of burnt wires, and silence hung like death. Daniel stood up, his voice trembling but firm. "We don't stop here. We fix it now." They worked all night, exhaustion crushing their bodies, until the sunrise poured golden light through the cracks of the garage. That morning, for the first time, the prototype came alive. Do you realize how close most people are to success when they decide to quit? Even after the breakthrough, the world didn't suddenly become easier. Customers rejected the product, competitors mocked him, and investors still turned away. But Daniel had learned something no one could take from him: the habit of relentless action. When a door slammed shut, he knocked on 3 more. When a deal fell apart, he pitched twice as hard the next day. His resilience was no longer a choice, it was survival. One winter evening, he returned home to find his mother sitting quietly by the stove, her hands rough from years of labor. She looked at him with tired eyes and whispered, "I never understood your risks, but I see your fire. Don't let it die." For the first time, Daniel felt both pride and guilt in the same breath. Pride that he was fighting, guilt that he had dragged his family through storms. But what if guilt is not a chain, but a reminder of what's at stake if you stop fighting? Years later, Daniel stood in a packed auditorium, speaking to young entrepreneurs about his journey. The bright lights made the room glow. The sound of applause echoed through his chest. He told them about the nights he had slept hungry, the debts that almost buried him, the failures that nearly broke him. Yet he also told them that every scar carried a lesson, and every fall taught him how to rise stronger. Looking at the eager faces before him, he ended with the truth he had lived. Risk is the price of growth. Resilience is the shield against failure, and relentless action, that's the weapon that builds empires. So ask yourself, are you living to stay safe, or are you ready to risk, fall, and rise until safety becomes freedom? Have you ever wondered why some people work their entire lives, sweating every day and still remain stuck, while others seem to build empires that grow even when they sleep? The sun was setting over the city, painting the glass towers in shades of orange and gold. Inside one of those towers, Daniel, now 30, leaned against his office window, staring at the streets below. Thousands of people rushed home after work, their tired faces reflecting the same story he once lived, trading endless hours for little progress. He thought of his father, who had worked himself to the bone, yet never escaped the cycle of struggle. That memory pierced through his chest like a sharp blade. What if hard work alone was never enough? What if the real secret was leverage? Daniel's journey had already taught him resilience, but now a deeper truth was forming. He remembered nights in the garage where he tried to do everything alone, fixing wires, making calls, even delivering products by hand. The exhaustion nearly broke him. He had believed that success meant carrying the weight alone. But watching his company slowly grow, he realized, no empire is built on a single man's shoulders. One evening, sitting at a long conference table with his small team, Daniel noticed their faces, tired, frustrated, but waiting for him to lead. The table was cluttered with laptops, empty coffee cups, and notes. He looked at them and admitted softly, "I can't do this alone. I need you." That sentence shifted everything. Do you realize how many dreams collapse because pride keeps people from building systems bigger than themselves? The months that followed were a storm of decisions. Daniel began delegating tasks, trusting his team with responsibilities he once clutched tightly. At first, he feared losing control. He feared they would fail him. But something unexpected happened. The more he trusted, the faster the company moved. Systems replaced chaos. Meetings replaced guesswork. Processes replaced panic. The weight on his shoulders slowly lightened, and for the first time, Daniel saw how leverage multiplies effort. Flashback pulled him back to a childhood memory. He was 10 years old, trying to lift a heavy stone outside his house. His small hands shook. His back ached, but he refused to quit. Then an older neighbor walked over, slid a wooden stick under the stone, and with one push, the stone rolled aside. Young Daniel had stood there stunned, realizing strength was not always about muscles. Sometimes it was about tools. Years later, that forgotten lesson returned. Leverage is the stick that moves stones too heavy for bare hands. What if the true difference between millionaires and billionaires is not effort, but the systems they build to make effort endless? Still, the road wasn't without guilt. Some nights, Daniel sat alone in his luxury apartment, staring at the city lights, questioning himself. His team worked late while he strategized from a distance. Was it fair? Was he exploiting them? The guilt twisted inside him, echoing his mother's tired eyes from years ago. But then he remembered, systems don't replace people, they empower them. His company wasn't just his dream anymore, it had become theirs too. The power of compounding began to reveal itself in subtle ways. One client turned into 5, then 50. Small profits reinvested became large pools of capital. A Single connection led to networks he never imagined. Just like interest growing silently in the dark, his efforts multiplied without his constant presence. He realized compounding wasn't just about money. It was about relationships, skills, and time. Every small, consistent action, repeated daily, became unstoppable over years. Do you know how many people quit too early, never giving compounding the years it needs to turn small sparks into unstoppable fire? Daniel's company now stood on systems that didn't collapse when he stepped away. While competitors burned out, chained to their desks, his business breathed on its own. He invested in technology that automated tasks, leaders who trained new hires, and strategies that scaled without his direct hand. It was a machine that grew while he slept, a living proof that freedom comes not from working more hours, but from designing systems that outlast you. One cold winter night, he visited his old neighborhood. The streets looked smaller now. The high, sharp signs faded, the houses tired. He walked past the broken streetlight where his 12-year-old self once cried over coins. This time, he wasn't carrying hunger in his chest. He was carrying a truth no one had taught him back then. Survival belongs to those who hustle, but legacies belong to those who build systems. He closed his eyes and whispered, almost as if speaking to his younger self. You don't win by working harder. You win by working smarter, longer, and with others. But what if the legacy you leave behind is not the money you made, but the systems you built that continue to grow even after you're gone? Years later, Daniel stood at another stage, addressing leaders from around the world. The lights above shone bright, the crowd buzzing with anticipation. He spoke not of his wealth, but of leverage, of the quiet, invisible power that had transformed his life. He told them about the boy with the stone, the man in the garage, and the empire that grew not because of him, but because of the systems he trusted to carry the weight. His voice carried across the hall. Anyone can hustle, but only those who master leverage and compounding build freedom. Money is temporary. Systems are eternal. The applause thundered, not just for his success, but for the truth that every listener secretly knew. Without leverage, they would remain prisoners of their own effort. So ask yourself, are you building a life that only works when you do? Or are you designing a system that will keep growing even after you're gone? Now tell me, if you were in Daniel's place, would you risk everything to build an empire or stay safe and small forever? Comment below. Risk. It all you play it safe. I'll be reading your answers. Your opinion matters. Maybe your words will inspire someone else watching this right now. And if you felt the fire in this story, make sure you smash that subscribe button and join this journey, because the next truth will be even bigger, even darker, and you don't want to miss it. The story isn't over, it's just beginning.